SpongeBob Season 17 is finally here, and one of the first episodes to air from the season is Kiss of the Nematode. And it was actually a pretty good episode. I wasn't a big fan of the start of the episode, but by the end of it, I was like, this was actually pretty good. But yeah, we're gonna get into all of the Easter eggs and facts, but let me give you guys a little bit of a rundown on what happens in this episode. Pretty much at the start of the episode, SpongeBob goes around kissing a bunch of different animals without even asking them. Like, I don't know what the guy's doing. He just kisses this worm over here without asking the owner, and eventually kisses this nematode, which results in him accidentally breaking a curse that turns the nematode back into a regular fish dude named Guy Fishman.
You must be a prince.
No, I'm not a prince either. I'm just an ordinary guy. Guy Fishman.
Now, the title of this episode is pretty funny on its own because the whole plot really does revolve around SpongeBob kissing a nematode. But there's also a hidden reference here. Kiss of the Nematode is actually a play on Kiss of the Spider-Woman, the famous Manuel Puig story that was later adapted into a stage musical. The SpongeBob production team has always loved these kinds of little references. But yeah, the actual episode isn't as deep. It's just about SpongeBob being a complete weirdo and kissing random creatures in the park, at least the start of the episode. But okay, let's get into what you guys clicked on the video for, and that's just all the behind the scenes details and Easter eggs and all that stuff in this episode, the stuff that I love to talk about. Now, before SpongeBob's kiss turns the nematode into Guy Fishman, the episode opens with him walking through a Bikini Bottom park and greeting a bunch of different little critters. One of the first animals he interacts with is a worm, and if we look closely, when SpongeBob scratches the worm's chin, he makes a very familiar face.
To say hello to all my favorite little critters. Hello, little worm.
So remember this face right here, as if we compare it to the season 2 episode Dumped, it looks a lot like the face that SpongeBob made when he was trying to get Rex to respond to him.
Now stay, Rex, stay. Good boy, Rex.
Considering both scenes involve SpongeBob interacting with pet worms, this feels way too specific to be like an accident or a coincidence. If we do a side-by-side, we can actually see how similar these two faces are. And yeah, I think that this was a straight up reference. Speaking of that worm, for those of you who did not know, it's not a random worm or like a new character. This worm appears to be Fifi, the poodle worm who has shown up in several episodes before this, including Gary in Love or Squid on a Bus. I personally love when the show does this because it makes the world of Bikini Bottom feel more connected. I mean, Fifi is not a major character or anything like that, but seeing a reoccurring pet worm that we've seen in other episodes in this episode makes the background world feel like less disposable, if that makes any sense. The one thing that is kind of funny though is how inconsistent Fifi's owner situation has been. Like if we go back to the episode Mandatory Music, Fifi is clearly Lady Upturn's pet, as you can see right here. But in this episode and multiple other of her appearances, she's always seen walking with a completely different incidental. Maybe the art team just needed a random owner for the park scene and just didn't care about matching it to the previous one. Or maybe Lady Upturn hired somebody to walk her poodle for her. Who knows? Like, that's kind of something that she would do. But either way, it's cool to see Fifi here, and I'm happy that they didn't just use a random worm character. Now, in that same opening stretch, SpongeBob is wearing something that should look familiar if you're really paying attention. But at the same time, it's pretty easy to miss this. As you can see, he has on this green hat right here. And it looks really fresh, like my boy's rocking that hat, but more importantly, this hat seems to be a deep cut nod to the green baseball cap that SpongeBob wore all the way back in the episode Home Sweet Pineapple. Now look, I'm realistic, guys. I'm a realistic person, so this could technically just be a coincidence since it's literally just a green hat. But the connection feels a lot stronger when you consider that Home Sweet Pineapple is all about nematodes, right? They literally eat SpongeBob's house, and now decades later, here's another nematode themed episode with SpongeBob wearing the exact same hat that he wore back in Home Sweet Pineapple. I don't know for sure, but I do think that this was an Easter egg, and if it is, it's a really cool one. I love Easter eggs that call back to that OG season of SpongeBob, seasons 1, 2, and 3. Moving on though, after SpongeBob kisses the nematode and turns him back into a regular person, we learn how this all happened. We learn that Guy Fishman was transformed into a nematode years earlier by a evil witch, and his backstory is like so SpongeBob. The dude stole the witch's seat at the Reef Cinema, which resulted in her being pretty pissed off and turning him into a nematode. Which I mean is obviously a pretty crazy punishment, but if we look in the shots of the theater was literally packed, so I can understand why she was mad. In Canada, we have Cineplex, and if you miss out on those seats, like these seats here, you have to sit at these seats that are insanely close to the screen, so I understand why the witch was so pissed off. But more importantly, because this is a cartoon and who cares, during this flashback, there's a quick cameo from one of the most iconic reoccurring characters in SpongeBob. And that's my boy Squilliam Fancyson, Squidward's arch nemesis, and honestly one of the more ruder characters like in the show. Now I know that some newer fans get pretty annoyed when they feel that SpongeBob is like nostalgia baiting by doing stuff like this, but honestly I personally love cameos like this. It's not like Squilliam derails the episode or takes focus away from the new plot. He's literally just chilling in the movie theater, existing in the world of SpongeBob. And if you ask me, that's like exactly how background cameos should work. It makes Bikini Bottom feel like an actual place where familiar characters can casually show up, even if the story isn't actually about them. And just saying, I'll be fair, Squilliam isn't necessarily a rare character anymore, since he's been popping up a lot more often in modern SpongeBob. But whenever I see the dude, it takes me back to being like 6-year-old cartoon Corey watching SpongeBob seasons 1, 2, 3 on TV. It's like a callback to that older era of the show, and I love it. But just saying, Squilliam isn't the only cameo hidden in that movie theater. That flashback scene also includes several much more obscure incidental characters, and these are the kinds of details that only nerds like me are going to catch. But also, the SpongeBob wiki. You know, I'm not going to take all the credit here. For one, sitting near Guy Fishman when he gets cursed is Incidental 183, one of the twins from the episode The Grill is Gone. And just saying, like, this character has barely appeared in SpongeBob, so seeing him randomly show up here is a really nice touch from the production team. There's also a variant of the famous salesman fish, the dude who tricks SpongeBob and Patrick back in Chocolate with Nuts. This version is Incidental 118C, and it's actually the same version of the character we seen in the Patrick Star Show episode Bummer Jobs. On top of that, Incidental 176 appears, and this one is like extremely rare. I mean, if we take a look at his Spongepedia page, we can see that he's only shown up in like one other episode before this, that being High Sea Diving. As I've already said a few times, you know, like I just love this kind of background work because it shows the art team is not only relying on the same 5 or 6 obvious incidentals every time, which would actually be pretty lazy. At this point, modern SpongeBob has like a massive freaking library of different background fish that they can use. And I just love when they pull from the rarer ones. I want to do a whole video just talking about rare incidentals. Let me know in the comments if you guys would watch that. I mean, it's easy to just throw Fred or Tom into every single crowd scene, but using characters like Incidental 176 or 183 makes the crowd feel more specific. And it also makes fans like me and makes our brains just feel good, you know, because I feel so cool that I noticed this. But yeah, let's talk about the witch herself, as she actually has a name that is very easy to miss if you're not listening carefully. It's Blaba Yaga.
I'm Blaba Yaga.
This name is a parody of Baba Yaga, a figure from Slavic folklore who is often portrayed as a witch or supernatural old woman. Obviously, the character design does not really look like, you know, the traditional depictions of the character, but the name reference is still a cool pull. It's also kind of neat that the production team is pulling from like Slavic folklore of all things, but I imagine when you've been running a show for this long, you're gonna need to start pulling from obscure stuff like that, right? But right after that flashback, the episode uses a ripple transition to return to the present day, to kind of signify that we're coming from the flashback, but instead of just letting the transition happen normally, SpongeBob comments on it by saying ripple tickle. And then his body like literally ripples.
Ripple tickle.
Now, not only is this kind of fourth wall breaking, since SpongeBob is basically reacting to an editing transition, but also, this appears to be a callback to a very similar joke from season 11's My Leg.
My leg!
Flashbacks tickle.
Now, on one hand, this could be like a cute callback to a recent era SpongeBob gag, but also, I'm realistic, and on the other hand, it could be like the writers just reusing a joke that they already did? But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think that this was like a straight up reference, or was it just the writers or animators being lazy? Also though, speaking of the whole flashback thing, Guy Fishman's whole curse seems to play with a classic fairy tale setup, one that a lot of you probably haven't heard of before, and I didn't even really know. This one is from the wiki, so I'll give them credit. But in this episode, a person is transformed into a creature, a kiss breaks the spell, and SpongeBob immediately assumes he must have kissed a prince. If you don't know already, this is very clearly riffing on The Frog Prince, the Brothers Grimm fairy tale. And I gotta say, in all my time making these videos, like the SpongeBob production team loves this type of shit. Like they love it. I never really get it at first glance, I can't lie. These types of references are always the ones that I pull from the wiki. But once I learn about them, I'm like, oh wow, like that's pretty cool. After the flashback, Guy reveals that the reason he is so upset is that he actually wanted to stay as a nematode. His old life before the curse was apparently terrible, but as a nematode, he was accepted by a group and even fell in love with a girl nematode, which is pretty weird, but hey, he didn't know if he was going to be turned back into a human, so I guess you can't blame the dude, you gotta move on. But this causes a dilemma, so SpongeBob decides to help him get cursed again, and the two of them go to the witch's house. The problem though is that the witch is no longer evil. She's actually changed her life around and now goes by a new name, that being Skyflower, and spends her time doing peaceful good deeds. So from here, the episode shifts into this like funny reversed quest where SpongeBob and Guy are trying to make a former witch evil again. And one of their attempts involves cutting down all of the trees that she's been planting over the years, which starts to work at first, but then the chopped wood accidentally becomes a children's playground. And because that turns it into a good deed, the witch calms down again and doesn't turn him back into a nematode like you wanted.
Wait, how did...
We made a little playground. How sweet.
Now during the playground scene, one of the kids who shows up is Helen the Felon, which is another pretty rare cameo. Helen first appeared back in the episode Call the Cops, and she's only appeared in very few episodes since that first appearance. So in other words, she's a very rare character. Now, one detail I noticed during this scene that I thought was really cool is if you look at Helen the Felon's mom, she seems very disinterested in her daughter and is very bored and is very focused on her phone. It explains why Helen acts out so much in other episodes. For example, for those of you who don't know, like the girl is literally a part of Evil, Every Villain is Lemons, the super villain group. And then even in other episodes like Escape from Beneath Glove World, she's shown to be like a bad kid. She literally bites a lemonade salesman.
I'm kidding, I'm just here because I bit the lemonade guy.
That guy hates kids!
That's why I bit him. High five.
So it's in the background and it's very easy to miss, but this quick clip right here with her mom is actually really, really good writing. Like it completely explains why she's, you know, a bad kid, I guess you'd say. And just saying, that was not from the wiki, that's all me, because I go hard and I love talking about this shit. Moving on though, after SpongeBob and Guy's plan fails, Guy eventually just gives up and goes to take the bus home. But this is where the episode gets good and it kind of brings everything full circle, as eventually the witch tries to get on that same bus and finds out that there are no seats left due to Guy taking the last seat, just like he did years earlier at the movie theater. This of course triggers the witch to finally turn evil again, and she snaps, turns Guy back into a nematode, curses everyone else on the bus, and eventually storms into Old Man Walker's house and transforms him as well. And during this one shot right here, there's actually another little Easter egg that's very easy to miss, as one of his paintings, this one right here, seems to resemble Abbott and Costello, which is a very specific reference, but it actually fits Old Man Walker perfectly. Abbott and Costello were a famous American comedy duo strongly associated with the 1940s and 1950s. So putting a reference to them in the home of one of SpongeBob's oldest characters actually makes sense, and again, is some really good like writing and world building. It isn't just random nostalgia for the sake of nostalgia. It actually matches the character's age and personality. So really cool stuff, and you can see what they were going for. This is very clearly a reference. And like I said, it's a cool one. I love this one. This is the type of shit that the SpongeBob production team should do all the time. I love when they build out the world of SpongeBob. It's not just about the main cast. All of these background characters can have their own quirks and stories and stuff as well. But we've come to the end of the episode, guys, and I've got one more thing for you guys. So at the very end of this episode, Guy finally gets what he wanted. The dude is a nematode again, and he finally gets to marry marry his nematode girlfriend, you know? It's kind of weird that he would go back to the nematode girlfriend since he became a human, but that's just true love right there, guys. That's true love. Heck, even SpongeBob gets turned into a nematode during this scene. Take a look. Now, this scene in the episode ends with SpongeBob and the rest of his nematode friends slurping up the wedding cake with straws, which is a perfect final reference back to Home Sweet Pineapple. If we rewind back to that season 1 episode, the nematodes famously destroy SpongeBob's pineapple by drinking it through straws, which literally makes the dude homeless. He ends up having to stay with Patrick at one point, tries to stay with Squidward. The dude was even gonna move back home with his mom and dad. And it's all because of these nematodes drinking his house with straws. So I actually don't know why he even helped them in the first place. It very well could have been Guy who ruined his house all the way back in season 1. But that's just a theory. A game theory. Actually, that was a cringe joke is what I'd call it, but you guys get the point. But yeah, bringing back that exact gag with the wedding cake in this episode was a great way to close things out. And I gotta say, that's actually what saved the episode for me. Also, the scene where Guy takes the seat from the witch, that was also just like fucking funny. So overall, I know this is about Easter eggs, but when I cover the newer episodes, I'll probably give like a little mini review at the end. And I think that this episode starts out kind of weak, but then it gets like really good. It actually has a funny conclusion in the end. So yeah, that's it for this episode. And stay tuned and subscribe because I'm going to be covering Easter eggs and trivia in all of the new season 17 episodes that come out. The episode SpongeBob Trash Pants turns a simple beach cleanup into a high-speed spectacle, brimming with references to SpongeBob's past. The episode finds SpongeBob volunteering to rid Goo Lagoon, Bikini Bottom's beach, of litter, and in doing so, he essentially becomes a one-sponge sanitation army, complete with a snappy uniform.
Trash, trash, everywhere trash. Picking up flotsam and jetsam. SpongeBob's the name, and litter's my game. So if you got garbage, I'll get some.
Well, longtime fans will immediately recognize SpongeBob's outfit in that last scene I just played, as it's almost a duplicate of the Union Soldier-style uniform he wore during the indoor campout of the season 6 episode Pineapple Fever. The difference though, this new version is bright white and sports a taller cap, but the homage is unmistakable. It's a fun visual cue that SpongeBob is entering battle mode against trash, much like he did against Cabin Fever, and indeed, he takes his new duty comedically seriously, which, as you guys know, that's how SpongeBob is. Remember when he became a hall monitor? He took that job equally as seriously. Anyways though, when this potato chip bag catches the breeze and flies off, SpongeBob gives chase across Bikini Bottom, and the episode becomes a grand tour of Easter eggs. The first stop, the boat rental kiosk at Goo Lagoon, which eagle-eyed viewers will remember from the episode Abandoned Twits. And there's more. As SpongeBob sprints past, determined to catch the rapper, he suddenly pulls off a classic gag. He deepens his voice to a booming baritone and sprouts a heroic square jaw. This hilarious transformation is a direct callback to this scene from the episode Hall Monitor.
And assume my duties as
Hall Monitor!
Wish me luck, Mrs. Puff. Gotcha!
Fell for the old tears of a trash man routine. I'll just put you in my pocket for safekeeping.
As you just seen, SpongeBob for a moment acquires a deep authority voice and ends up looking like a total Chad, a Giga Chad. Look at that jawline. In Hall Monitor, it was a part of his overzealous persona, and seeing it resurface in an episode years later, like 20 years later, is a perfect inside joke showing that SpongeBob is still a control freak, and he can have a really nice jawline sometimes. The chase scene becomes a who's who of Bikini Bottom cameos. At one point, the hot rod tough guy from the episode Midlife Crustacean zooms by in his flaming convertible.
Hey, you guys must be lost! Doofus Drive is around the corner!
This time though, he gets pulled over by a police officer for speeding. The tough guy instantly becomes a softie. He produces flowers and chocolate out of nowhere and hands them to the cop in apology. But meanwhile, in the midst of the chaos, Bubble Bass barrels through the scene wearing a familiar ensemble he wore way back in the season 1 episode Fools in April. I guess Bubble Bass hasn't updated his wardrobe since 1999, which is a cute detail for observant fans. And keep your eyes peeled on the background as Bubble Bass tries to escape SpongeBob, as for a split second, Patrick is visible hanging from a carnival prize hook on the boardwalk. Desperate desperately trying to stay hidden. The visual gag references Patrick's antics in The Whole Tooth from season 9, where in this scene he does a very similar action at a fair to avoid going to the dentist.
Oh.
And we have a winner.
Thank you.
Oh, darn it.
It's a tiny detail, but it rewards viewers who catch the parallel Patrick once again hooked at a fair. But guess what, guys? We're still not done. There's more, and there's a lot more. As SpongeBob's pursuit takes him through town, the animators populate the streets with old establishments we've seen in prior episodes. We pass by mattresses and then some, and if this store looks familiar, it's because we've seen it before. It's the exact same store from the old school episode, The Lost Mattress, where SpongeBob and friends bought a new bed for Mr. Krabs. Next is Martha's Craft Zone, which again, we haven't seen it for a while. The last time we seen it was in the episode Have You Seen This Snail, when SpongeBob gathered supplies to make Missing Gary posters. And then, in a triple whammy, we see Weenie Hut Juniors, the Pizza Pie Hole, and Taco Sombrero. Now I'm hungry, but this is the trio of fast food joints where SpongeBob tried working at when he got fired in the episode SpongeBob, You're Fired. Seeing all these locations on one boardwalk is like a mini SpongeBob map of memories, cleverly inserted without fanfare. They establish Bikini Bottom's continuity, as all of these places still exist and are open for business, even as SpongeBob rushes by on his mission. The climax of the chase sequence is equally jam-packed with even more references. SpongeBob ends up launching into the air and crashes directly into a horse-drawn funeral carriage, driven by Slappy, the living dummy character from Nickelodeon's crossover, The Patrick Star Show. As SpongeBob hurtle through the psychedelic sky, keen fans will notice it's the same sky tunnel that Mrs. Puff and SpongeBob flew through in the episode Doing Time. Here's a side-by-side, and yeah man, this is a reference to a season 3 episode. It's really cool. Reusing that distinctive swirling background for SpongeBob's trash flight is a brilliant deep cut. And even the title card of SpongeBob Trash Pants carries an Easter egg. Its design mimics the title card of Jellyfish Hunter from season 2, except now there's trash everywhere around the title. But actually, there's more, and you really need to be a nerd to catch this one. As a cherry on top, the episode slips in a meta reference that even the most seasoned fans might have been stunned by. For those who don't know, a WH-2O radio tower appears during the chase, a sunken red and white boat with a tall antenna, mass broadcasting music. Casual viewers might just see a random radio station, but SpongeBob nerds like me recognize WH-2O as the fictional Bikini Bottom radio from the Best Day Ever album, a SpongeBob music album released in 2006 that opened with a WH-2O skit. I'm gonna play it here. I'm gonna try to put some music in the background maybe so it doesn't get claimed, but listen.
Hi, radio listeners. This is SpongeBob SquarePants. When I'm in Bikini Bottom, I listen to Al Bacori, the tuneful tuna, on WH2O. WH2O.
In Trash Pants, this very station is shown for the very first time in the series, making the first ever crossover of a SpongeBob album element into the TV show. On the other side of the station is text proudly declaring nothing but chase music since 2006, a cheeky reference to the album's release year and the jaunty chase music it featured. It's an Easter egg that nobody saw coming, not even me, breaking the wall between SpongeBob music and cartoon canon. And with that, SpongeBob Trash Pants cements itself as a treasure trove of inside jokes. An episode that, much like SpongeBob's trusty uniform, stitches the old and new together in one entertaining package. In the episode Near Mint Plankton, Plankton concocts a new scheme by shrinking down and disguising himself as a collectible figurine. And why? You guys know why. He wants to snag one of those delicious Krabby Patties without Mr. Krabs noticing. Very clever, Plankton. Instead though, he ends up in the clutches of Bubble Bass, who is an avid collector of limited edition superhero memorabilia. This guy is obsessed. And we're gonna get into the Easter eggs, but I gotta say, I do like how they changed Bubble Bass's character over the years. Originally, he was just this rude dude who liked pickles, but they've kind of turned him into the nerdy character who's obsessed with nerd stuff. Anyways though, this episode's premise naturally sets the stage for a literal treasure trove of different SpongeBob nostalgia and Easter eggs. For example, when Mr. Krabs cashes in on the collector craze by selling special edition Krabby Patties, the varieties on offer are a delightful deep cut from the season 9 episode Munity on the Krusty. In that earlier episode, it's actually really old now, from like 2015 I think, but in this episode, SpongeBob introduced novelty patties like the Hattie Patty, a Krabby Patty that you wear as a hat. There's also the Chatty Patty, a talking patty for teens, and the Bratty Patty, a kitty patty with a backwards baseball cap.
And he's the man who brought brought you the double Krabby Patty, and the Krabby Patty with cheese, and the Brownie Patty for kids.
This patty's stealing my style. I'm the only one who's allowed to wear a backwards baseball cap, guys. Come on. Surely enough, though, Near Mint Plankton shows Bubble Bass proudly adding a new pickle patty to his collection, right alongside his chatty, Hattie, and bratty patties. The very same whimsical burgers first seen during Munity on the Krusty. This is a clever callback that rewards eagle-eyed fans. And even Bubble Bass's line, "I'll place it next to my chatty, fatty, and bratty patties," directly references those legendary novelties. It's not like they just showed them, he literally refers to them by name, so we know this is an Easter egg. But let's keep it moving, as Bubble Bass's basement itself is a shrine to SpongeBob lore. Viewers can spot a statue of SpongeBob dressed as a certain superhero. Take a look at this clip from the episode Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 5, more specifically the superhero that SpongeBob turns into. This guy right here is the Quickster, and we haven't really seen him since Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 5. We've seen some of the other superheroes in this episode. For example, in Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 5, Sandy dresses up as Miss Appear, another superhero that can turn invisible. But we've actually seen Miss Appear a couple of times since then. For example, in the episode Delivery of Doom, or in the episode Appointment TV, as you can see here. But the Quickster, we haven't seen this character for a long time, but that all changed in Near Mint Plankton. As look, amongst Bubble Bass's collectibles, there's this statue of SpongeBob dressed up as the Quickster. This blink and you'll miss it background gag firmly anchors the episode in SpongeBob's wider universe. And who knows, maybe we'll see the Quickster again in the future. I would love to see another episode where they all dress up as superheroes, but I've got more, and the Easter eggs are gonna get even crazier as we go. That way, if you guys are still awake, you haven't fallen asleep yet, at least I can keep you guys entertained. But you should be asleep already, bro. What are you doing? You got work or school tomorrow. Go to sleep. I love you. I'm trying to support you here. But anyways, here's the next episode. The episode Hog Huntin' follows SpongeBob and Patrick on a wild countryside adventure, tracking down Old Man Jakin's prized worm hog, a pig-like critter, after it goes missing.
You keep your hands off my beautiful Beulah!
I wasn't touching her, I was just, admiring her beauty.
This episode dives into a ton of good humor. It plays into the whole countryman stereotype. Think barnyards, beards, and backwoods shenanigans pretty much. It's a good episode. But it also hides a couple of clever pop culture parodies. One of the first gags comes when SpongeBob stumbles on Old Man Jenkins watching his favorite soap opera, Days of Our Styes. For those of you who don't know, this title is a really funny little goof referencing the long-running soap opera, Days of Our Lives. The show's writers are clearly winking at the audience here. Bikini Bottom has its own version of Days of Our Lives, only with hogs instead of people. And if that sounds familiar, it's because SpongeBob has spoofed this exact soap opera before in the episode Wary Gary. This one is a snail-focused drama called Snails of Our Lives, played on TV as a pet parody of the same series. Later in this episode, Hog Huntin' treats us to a musical Easter egg that's perfectly in tune with the episode's country western vibe. SpongeBob and Patrick end up literally living in Old Man Jenkins' enormous beard for a while. Long story short, hiding from an angry Jenkins after a failed hog catching attempt. During their cozy exile in his facial hair, and sings a delightful ditty titled Home in a Beard. Take a listen, but we can't play it for too long because I'm not trying to get destroyed by copyright.
Home in a beard, where the whiskers and stubble are weird.
If the melody and theme sound old-timey to you, that's by design. Home in a Beard is a direct parody of the classic American folk song Home on the Range. The original 1972 song famously yearns for life on the open prairie, whereas SpongeBob's version yearns for, well, the comfort of living in a bristly old beard. I cannot relate. Between the soap opera spoofs and folk song parodies, Hog Huntin' shows that even in jellyfish fields and barns, SpongeBob's world is never far from ours, or from its own past jokes. In the episode Laundro Madness, SpongeBob and Squidward take a mundane errand, washing clothes at the laundromat, and turn it into a wacky monster movie that gleefully cleans up on references. The episode brings back The Wash, the same Bikini Bottom laundromat that Mr. Krabs, SpongeBob, and Patrick visited during their night out in Midlife Crustacean.
Hello, gang. SpongeBob's back.
Let's party!
Any party next door? Wait a minute. This is a laundromat.
I guess the writers in season 16 really like this episode, Midlife Crustacean. It's a good episode, man. Remember when Mr. Krabs stole his own mom's underwear? That's a story for another day, but let's keep it moving. Die Hard fans will remember that in that season 3 episode, the trio's big evening of fun ended up turning into doing laundry at the wash. As you guys have seen in my more recent videos, and even in this one, this seems to be a big trend in recent seasons, is them taking locations or characters from older episodes and making them a part of the world of SpongeBob instead of them just being one-off locations. For example, this wash place was just a one-off location in Midlife Crustacean, so it's cool that they're making it like a part of the lore. But let's keep it moving. As the episode progresses, and after an intense cycle, SpongeBob triumphantly presents Rube's freshly cleaned hat, and in that moment, he strikes a familiar pose. His face is the spitting image of the goofy, anticipatory grin he showed in the Krusty Krab training video episode, when waiting for the narrator to reveal the secret formula. It's the same wide-eyed, toothy face full of excitement, and fans of that classic training spoof will instantly recall SpongeBob quivering with that exact same expression. Here's a side-by-side, and yeah, like you can see it. This is a really cool reference, but of course I've got more. The mundane soon turns monstrous as an overloaded washing machine comes to life, assembling itself into a sudsy giant. Informing its body, it grabs odds and ends from around the laundromat, and one of those items had SpongeBob fans cheering: Patrick's high-heeled boots. Oh yeah. The washing machine yanks a pair of women's stiletto boots, and we see that they're the exact same that Patrick donned in this iconic scene from the original SpongeBob SquarePants movie. The monster uses them as one of its makeshift legs. It seems Patrick's fashion choice was memorable enough to haunt Bikini Bottom's laundry. And speaking of familiar faces, as the climax unfolds, none other than Fish Cowboy from the episode Boating Buddies saunters into the wash.
I think we all learned a lesson here today, and I wrote a song about it.
In Boating Buddies, this country western fish randomly appeared. Roll the footage.
I never will understand these city folk.
Laundro Madness brings him back for an encore, as at the end, as everyone celebrates defeating the laundry monster, this cowboy strums a guitar and sings a twangy tune called Wash and Dry. It's the same character and same gag, now hilariously repurposed for a laundromat victory song. It's an Easter egg that could easily fly under the radar, but for those who remember the random cowboy singer, it's a really cool surprise to see him return. It's random, but it's really cool. Finally though, the showrunners couldn't resist one more tongue-in-cheek reference. Throughout the episode, a bright orange and blue detergent box is visible right here, and its design and color scheme are unmistakably evoking from the famous Tide laundry detergent brand. And I mean, come on, this one's obvious.
Tilly, be nice. Leave that starched shirt alone.
By the end of this episode, the laundromat is saved, Squidward's shirt is clean, albeit with some battle scars, and the audience is left marveling at how many jokes and references were put in this episode. I mean, from bringing back the wash, an old location we haven't seen in years, to referencing SpongeBob's first movie, Laundro Madness is a great episode with lots of nostalgia. As a two-part Halloween special, The Haunted Bucket overflows with spooky fun and callbacks to SpongeBob's own haunted history. The episode's setup sees SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward entering the Chum Bucket on Halloween night, only for Plankton's latest evil gadget to malfunction and rip open a portal to a ghostly underworld.
Why are they dressed like cowboys? Well, I bought the Chum Bucket cheap because it was built on an ancient cowboy burial ground.
What follows is a cascade of visual gags and references that will make any longtime fan cackle like the Flying Dutchman. In fact, speaking of the Dutchman, Squidward shows up to Mr. Krabs' Halloween party wearing his old Flying Dutchman costume. And if it looks familiar, it's because it's from this scene I'm about to play from the episode Scaredy Pants. Roll the clip.
I've come for your pickle.
Here's a side-by-side, and yeah, he's wearing the exact same costume, and I love this, man. Like, this episode is season 16, so it came out in 2025. Scaredy Pants came out in the early 2000s, so whoever wrote this episode or this gag, they did their research. You know, I wonder if Squidward dresses up as the Flying Dutchman every year, and if he does, it's kind of funny, because this is the same dude who put Squidward down the Fly of Despair. This happened in the episode Shanghai, and just look, poor Squidward. Actually, maybe he's dressing up as him so that doesn't happen again. But anyways, once the real haunting begins in this episode, SpongeBob himself ends up transformed into a special form. And keen-eyed viewers will notice that it's the same look he sported in season 7's The Curse of Bikini Bottom. In that episode, SpongeBob and Patrick were turned into transparent green ghosts by the Dutchman's curse.
You're ghosts!
We're ghosts!
This isn't really working out the way I imagined.
The haunted bucket gives SpongeBob a similar ghostly appearance when he accidentally gets zapped by Plankton's machine, echoing the previous episode I just mentioned. Meanwhile, SpongeBob and Patrick's choice of Halloween costumes is also a deep cut in itself. Take a look.
We're going as a simul! Uh-oh, I think we're both rear ends.
As you just seen, SpongeBob and Patrick dress up as a two-person horse. This silly getup actually resembles Patrick's own horse alter ego from the episode Pat the Horse, in which Patrick pretended to be a horse for literally a whole episode. Like, I'm not lying. Take a look at this clip.
Calm down, buddy. I don't want to lose you again.
But the episode doesn't stop at character costumes. The entire Chum Bucket laboratory is dressed up with references. When Plankton chases the trespassers into his basement lab, the set piece will look familiar, as the lab's layout closely resembles the high-tech lab seen in Welcome to the Chum Bucket, right down to the large machines and eerie lighting. Like, here's a side-by-side and you can definitely see it. Additionally, SpongeBob's old robot SpongeBob makes a cameo in the corner, and this is the same robot version of SpongeBob from the episode Welcome to the Chum Bucket.
Get welded.
Wait! I command you, make me a Krabby Patty!
There's another Easter egg during that same Plankton laboratory scene, with the animators even throwing in a transmogrifter device from the episode The Algae's Always Greener, another infamous Plankton invention that swapped his life with Mr. Krabs. It's sitting amongst the junk in the lab, and it's a blink and you'll miss it type of Easter egg for sharp viewers who recall that life-switching remote control. These background details firmly root the haunted bucket in SpongeBob's lore, making the Chum Bucket feel like a haunted museum of Plankton's past schemes. I love it. And there's more. At one point, Plankton frantically brainstorms how to stop the rampaging ghosts he's unleashed and muses that he needs something absorbent yet porous. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Well, it's an obvious nod to the SpongeBob theme song, where it says absorbent in yellow and porous is he. It's a clever fourth wall poke that suggests Plankton knows exactly who can save the day.
All we need now is something to contain those ghosts.
Something absorbent, yet porous.
Oh.
Even the trick-or-treating montage is loaded with Easter eggs. For example, who remembers the character Kenny the Cat? He appeared in literally the episode called Kenny the Cat, and take a look at this clip. He was an interesting character.
But down here, I'm someone special, someone who can make people happy. And if making the world a happier place makes me a criminal, then lock me up and sew away the key.
This is how Kenny the Cat looks. And remember this as it's important. If we go back to that trick-or-treating montage scene, look.
Hello?
As you just saw, one of the background kids is dressed as Kenny the Cat, complete with whiskers and a ear headband. And he even has a poster of Kenny in his house, referencing the famous air-breathing feline from the episode Kenny the Cat. This is really cool because it's more world building. Kenny the Cat is a celebrity in Bikini Bottom, if you guys remember from the episode Kenny the Cat, so it makes sense that a kid would have a poster of him and would dress up as him. This was really good writing here. But if we look closely, another costume child twirls girls in a sparkly pink gown. Well, a lot of people think that this could be a reference to Glinda, the Good Witch from The Wizard of Oz. Here's a side-by-side. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. You should be sleeping though. You shouldn't be commenting anything actually. Just stay sleeping, close those eyes, and let Cartoon Corey put you to sleep. It sounded kind of creepy, but I don't mean it like that. But let's keep it moving, as just when you think the Haunted Bucket has packed every single SpongeBob reference possible, it even tips its hat to Charlie Brown. Some of you guys might not know Charlie Brown because you're young, but Charlie Brown is like an iconic cartoon from back in the day. But yeah, a few scenes gently parody the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown special, with pumpkin ghosts and candy gags that Peanuts aficionados will definitely recognize. All of these homages and in-jokes are woven seamlessly into the narrative. The characters never pause to explain them, like I do, but fans like me in the know will be very happy with this episode, so go give it a watch. The episode Go Fetch stands out in SpongeBob history as the first fully CGI animated episode of the series, and it uses unique visuals to drive into a simple, sweet adventure. Gary's favorite red ball bounces into a deep, monster-filled trench, and SpongeBob loyally plunges in after it.
Good thing this huge pile of lost balls broke our fall.
From the very start, the animators hid references in the background art, but not all of it made it into the final episode. For example, early concept paintings for the trench include scenery modeled after SpongeBob's Season 1 episode, Muscle Bob Buff Pants. And there's also a scene that didn't make it into the episode, resembling imagery from SpongeBob's Season 4 episode, Have You Seen This Snail? Which is fitting because this episode does follow a similar plot. Now these are subtle nods. A rock formation here, a lighting setup there, that gives long viewers a warm sense of deja vu as SpongeBob and Gary descend through the dark depths. But the treasures of Go Fetch aren't just in the scenery, they're also in the props and characters. Gary's coveted red ball is a direct continuity nod to the episode Gary's New Toy from Season 9, where Gary becomes obsessed with this toy.
Go and get it.
As you can see, this ball is very similar to the one in Go Fetch. In fact, the ball here is actually identical to the one to that episode, down to its color and pattern. Seeing Gary refuse to give up on his toy is extra rewarding if you recall how much the snail loved his bouncy ball back in Gary's New Toy. The thing became obsessed with the toy. I don't know why I just called Gary a thing, but he was obsessed with that ball. And there's more. As SpongeBob chases Gary's ball deeper, they encounter a ghostly translucent fish lurking in the abyss. And if you're a true SpongeBob fan, you'll recognize the design, as it bears a striking resemblance to a quirky character from the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. In the movie, a similarly transparent floater appears during the trench scene, and here that design resurfaces as if the film and show have converged. It's a blink and you'll miss it cameo, but a thrilling one, to be honest. It's really cool to see a reference to that OG 2004 SpongeBob movie. If you haven't watched that, seriously go watch it, it's really good. Now, despite being a modern technical showpiece, like this is the first episode in 3D animation, and hopefully it's the last. I like 2D SpongeBob, but this one still feels almost nostalgic in spirit. It even includes a gentle tribute to the late Steven Hillenburg storytelling style, mostly visual, adventurous, and guided by music and expression, and all without saying a word. So really good episode, and I've got more. Let's head over to more Easter eggs in this next episode. The episode, The Green Tentacle, is quite the new one. It actually isn't even out in America yet, but that's just how hard Cartoon Corey goes for you, and I've already found a bunch of Easter eggs in this episode. But let's get into the plot, that way all of the Easter eggs and facts actually make sense. But yeah, on a sunny day in Bikini Bottom, Sandy is enjoying a refreshing glass of this iced tea right here in her tree dome when a familiar insect flutters by. Longtime fans will recognize this butterfly, as it's the very same one that startled SpongeBob back in the series' second episode, Tea at the Tree Dome.
There's no water in here.
Years later, like 25 plus years later in The Green Tentacle, this cute little creature makes a brief cameo here in this episode, making for a really cool nod to the past. And just saying this isn't like a random butterfly, if we do a side-by-side, we can see that the butterfly's distinctive orange wings with these black spots make it very clear that, you know, it's the same butterfly. It's a tiny detail, but a rewarding Easter egg for those of us who are massive SpongeBob nerds, especially of the first season. But this peaceful moment doesn't last. Sandy wakes up to be horrified when she discovers that her prized oak tree is suddenly withering, shredding leaves at an alarming rate. This thing is dying. it's cooked. Desperate to save it, she enlists help from SpongeBob, and eventually Squidward, who, as we've seen before, fancies himself as a bit of a gardener. Of course, Squidward agrees, but only after Sandy strokes his ego by calling him the best gardener in Bikini Bottom. And this in itself isn't necessarily an Easter egg, but it's some really cool continuity, and it directly references episodes like SpongeBob You're Fired, or Mermaid Pants, or Bunny Hunt, where we see that Squidward is really into gardening. So really cool, but this sets the stage for Squidward to join in on the plot and help with the situation. Hopefully he can save Sandy's tree. What follows is Squidward's over-the-top, pretty much manic approach to tree healing. He transforms the tree dome into a Zen garden, complete with meditation sessions to the sound of his clarinet. As night falls, Squidward's determination morphs into obsession. He literally slips into like a manic state. Now at one point, we see him manically striking a large gong with a mallet in this clip right here.
The process. The process. The process.
Which instantly rang a bell for me at least, no pun intended, and I'm sure for a lot of you guys, as it mirrors a scene from the classic episode Fear of a Krabby Patty, where Mr. Krabs frantically pounds on a cowbell in a similar fashion.
Day 23! Give it up for day
6,654.
Day 30!
Now, this homage isn't frame perfect, but the frenzied energy and timing make it that it's a pretty clear inspiration. Also, just saying, Squidward becoming so crazy in this episode is very funny. He reminds me of myself when I forget to take my ADHD medication. But yeah, by morning, Sandy's patience wears thin. When she confronts Squidward about his chaotic methods, he snaps, kicking Sandy out of her own tree dome. And this is where we can find more Easter eggs and facts and references to older episodes. The next day, SpongeBob and Sandy sneak back in, and to their amazement, the tree is green again, but it comes with a bit of a catch. At first glance, it looks like Squidward has succeeded. The branches are full of broad green, quote-unquote, leaves, but a closer look reveals that these are not leaves. Squidward has plastered the tree with pieces of his own paintings, cutting them into leaf shapes and essentially turning the oak tree into an art project. This is a very Squidward solution, just saying. I mean, if nature won't cooperate, right, why not replace it with art, especially his art that he made? But forget about all of that, let's talk about the multiple Easter eggs in this one scene, as many of the leaves are actually fragments of Squidward's past artworks seen in older episodes. And the first one that I think we all will recognize is the infamous Bold and Brash painting, which can be seen right here. Originally from Season 2's Artist Unknown, Bold and Brash is the abstract portrait of Squidward that he once tried to sell to an art collector. This guy right here, Monty P. Moneybags. And I mean, who could forget Monty's scathing critique?
How about this one? I call it bold and brash.
More like belongs in the trash.
Sorry, I must have missed that one.
Don't worry, I'm gonna talk about more Easter eggs in this episode, as there's multiple other portraits here that reference older episodes. But just saying, I'm actually considering doing a full video, like doing a deep dive, like an insane deep dive into Squidward's portraits, because Squidward's actually a really good artist. But anyways, this painting right here, Bold and Brash, appears in the green tentacle, and it's an awesome Easter egg. But it's also a little heartbreaking. I mean, Squidward in his derangement has literally torn up all of his masterpieces to save a tree. So one has to wonder, is Bold and Brash canonically destroyed now? I mean, I really hope not. But actually, Bold and Brash isn't the only piece of artwork that we can see during that shot. As you can see, and I'm circling all of them, there's a bunch of other portraits here. And a couple of them are also references to other portraits we've seen in previous SpongeBob episodes. They're Easter eggs. For example, I was able to spot this one right here, and I just want to say this isn't on the SpongeBob wiki, I found this on my own. But there's this blue background self-portrait of Squidward right here, where he has one normal eye and one like red bloodshot eye, I guess. It's a very funky art style, but if it looks familiar, it's because we've seen this exact same portrait before. Many times actually, but a good example is that it was one of the many paintings Squidward carted into the Krusty Krab during the season 10 episode Out of the Picture. And that episode, Squidward tried to sell a whole gallery of his art, and this blue background portrait was clearly one of his personal favorites on display. Here's a side-by-side, and they're definitely basically the same painting or portrait, right? The animator's decision to include it here is honestly a deep cut reference. And it shows their attention to detail, because if you really think about it, they could have put like any random painting here. They could have just doodled some random stuff, but they specifically chose established Squidward art. And this has actually been an ongoing thing. I noticed while researching this section that in the modern day, I just hit my microphone, but in the modern day of SpongeBob, right? A lot of Squidward's portraits are consistent. Like when they're referenced, there'll be other portraits we've seen. For example, if we look at all the portraits seen in Out of the Picture, and then we look at the episode Chatterbox Gary, a lot of them line up. But anyways, there's actually another reference in the green tentacle in the form of another portrait during the exact same frame. It's this one right here. And it's an even stranger portrait of Squidward drawn in a surreal art style with like an extra eye on his forehead. He's also cut in half and mirrored on the bottom of the portrait. I'm zooming in on it, it's this one right here. And while this one is also a reference. As if we head back to Out of the Picture, we'll find a very similar portrait right here. They seem to be color variants of each other, but as we can see side by side, it's the same. On top of this, there's another painting back in the green tentacle in that same frame that stands out. It's this like tiki inspired painting of Squidward's face, and this one might trigger memories from a more recent episode, as it's a reference to Chatterbox Gary from season 11, where Gary acquires a collar that translates his meow into speech, which is actually pretty cool. Imagine giving like your dog or your goldfish like some device and they could talk to you. I know my dog would just beg for treats all the time. But yeah, back in that episode Chatterbox Gary, Squidward proudly shows off a secret room in his house filled floor to ceiling with self-portraits. And one of the pieces visible in Squidward's gallery is identical to the one I just mentioned in the green tentacle. The fact that it reappears here is again a fun shout out to Chatterbox Gary and underscores just how vast Squidward's crazy art collection really is. And again, realistically, the storyboard artists could have doodled up some random modern art for this scene, but instead they pulled from Squidward's established catalog. Because this dude has a lineup of paintings, man. He has a lot. But let's keep it going with even more Easter eggs. Ultimately, the crisis in the green tentacle is resolved in a very SpongeBob-esque way. SpongeBob innocently muses that it's a shame that they can't just ask the tree what's wrong, which gives Sandy a very clever idea. She creates like literally a device that lets the tree talk to them. And this reveals that the tree isn't actually sick at all. It simply has something heavy pressing on its roots. And that's Sandy's truck right here. I don't know why she parked her truck on her tree, but I also think it's hilarious that Sandy drives a truck because she's like a Texan. I mean, this technically isn't an Easter egg or even a reference, but it's some really cool continuity and it's very fitting for Sandy's character if you think about it. Like, look at this truck. It just screams redneck Texan. But Sandy knows the issue now, she fixes it, and the tree perks up. Healthy as ever. Squidward, now coming to his senses, realizes that he's destroyed all of his paintings for nothing. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode in terms of Easter eggs. But again, I do want to say, I wonder if Squidward's paintings, like all of them, are canonically destroyed now. It's a cartoon, so I doubt it. SpongeBob is very selective with their continuity, so who knows? I'm sure the paintings will pop up again in another episode, but we'll just have to wait and see. In the meantime though, let's head over to another episode and talk about more Easter eggs. In the episode Happy Krabby Birthday, SpongeBob and Squidward scramble to find a birthday present for their very greedy boss, Mr. Krabs, which if you really think about it is kind of funny because I don't think Mr. Krabs would even get SpongeBob or Squidward anything for their birthday. I don't even think this dude even pays SpongeBob, and he's also like worked both him and Squidward to death many times. But anyways, this isn't an audit of Mr. Krabs as a boss. This is an Easter eggs video, and there's tons of Easter eggs in this episode, and the first few can be found when SpongeBob and Squidward head over to Lady Upturn's store, Upturns, hoping to find Mr. Krabs a gift there, with the duo eventually stumbling into this dangerous pets section of the place. And dude, there are so many really cool Easter eggs here. And I want to just give myself some credit. This episode technically didn't fully release in the US yet. It's only been released in New Zealand. So there's actually a bunch of these Easter eggs and references here that I found myself completely on my own, and I even matched them myself. As Squidward rushes through the entrance of the Dangerous Pets department, two posters can be seen right by the doorway, each featuring a familiar friend or animal from SpongeBob history. On one side is a poster of the purple sea monkey, a very specific one from the season 11 episode, The String. The dude is even depicted making the exact same like angry face that he made just before he attacked Bubble Bass back in The String. So yeah, seeing that same purple primate right here is a really cool nod nod to that moment. On the opposite side of the doorway, another poster showcases one of the deadly monsters from Delivery to Monster Island. It's the weird purple monster from that episode, one of the many gigantic weird creatures that SpongeBob and Plankton encounter. The inclusion of this poster is an awesome reference to a fairly recent episode, but it also hints that Upturn sells some truly outlandish pets. It may also be a wink at the animation team's own history with the series. Michelle Bryan, the animation director of Happy Crappy Birthday, this episode we're talking about, also closely worked on Delivery to Monster Island. And this is interesting as there's a ton of references to Delivery to Monster Island, in particular in this episode. Once SpongeBob and Squidward head inside, Squidward eventually gets inked up by this giant spider right here. But just as this happens, if we look behind him, in a background tank lurks the two-headed eel monster, the same one from Delivery to Monster Island. This double-domed creature was one of the deadly monsters, another deadly monster. And here it's caged as a dangerous pet. I definitely don't want to take him home. Also, just saying, I know we can only see one of his heads here, but if we look at a side-by-side of it from this episode and from Delivery to Monster Island, I mean, come on, it's the same character. The coloring of the white is slightly off, I guess, but it's the same character. But yeah, back to that spider, which sends Squidward flying into the next room, which leads to Squidward crashing into this large aquarium tank, which frees another familiar character, the sewer snake, specifically from the episode The Sewers of Bikini Bottom. This is the same massive green sewer-dwelling serpent that tried to devour SpongeBob and Squidward all the way back in that season 9 episode. It's crazy to think that even season 9 is kind of old now. Just to give you an idea of how old season 9 is, it came out when the first Avengers movie came out in 2012. So yeah, we're getting old, guys, and season 9 is clearly old enough now for it to have references in newer SpongeBob episodes. And there's actually a ton more in this room if you guys haven't already noticed, as in the same shot, we can also see several other aquarium tanks in the background, each containing more Easter eggs. Like if we go over here, we can see the woolly mollusk, which first appeared back in the episode in Security Guards during this clip right here. If we look at this aquarium right here, we can see the original snail monster, the same one from Food Con Castaways. You'll remember this creature from this clip right here. If we look over here, we can see this weird U-shaped pink deadly monster, which is of course also from Delivery to Monster Island. I really tried to find the name for this guy, but I could not find his name, so I'm just calling him the weird pink U-shaped deadly monster. We can also find the pink squid from Delivery to Monster Island right here in this aquarium, the same one who helps SpongeBob serve food. And hey, I'm just saying again, and look, I don't deserve a cookie for this. This is what all content creators should be doing. But if we go and look at the SpongeBob wiki, alright, and we go and look at episode references, you'll notice that a bunch of the ones I just talked about aren't here, and that's because I found them on my own. It may be updated, if you go to the website right now, it may be updated, but as of this video and in the footage, in the screenshots I'm showing you, it's not there. And again, I don't deserve a cookie for that. Every content creator should be doing that. I'm just highlighting this so you guys know that I do put the work in for my content. I love doing this, and I'm very lucky that I get to do it. So I'm not going to go and be lazy about it. But anyways, if we head into the next shot, there's even more Easter eggs. If we take a close look and zoom in on the bottom left-hand corner, we can see the banana baby from Delivery to Monster Island. The same one who may look cute at first glance, alright? It's very cute, but it's actually pretty rabid. Yo, imagine some incidental fish going to Upturn's, alright? Lady Upturn's store to buy a pet and accidentally buys the banana baby, brings it home, and almost gets his head bitten off by that thing. This dangerous pet section should be closed. Why is this place open? Or just imagine if all of these aquariums got cracked open. We've seen Squidward free the sewer snake, but imagine if they all got freed, Bikini Bottom would be cooked. And there's even more dangerous creatures in here, as right behind SpongeBob, we can catch a sight of incidental 220, the round green rock bottom bus station fish. This thing is like a deep sea sea toad that you all probably remember from the episode Rock Bottom. In that one, SpongeBob tries to steal this dude's spot in line at the bus station, only to be scared off when the fish reveals its true form. This one's kind of weird because like Incidental 220 has always just been like a background incidental character and not a pet. Like he's literally waiting for the bus in Rock Bottom. So the fact that somebody like captured him and put him in an aquarium in this episode's actually like kind of disturbing. This dude could have had a whole life. Like we need to protest this shit or something, dude. Somebody free my boy Incidental 220. Like forget Mr. Krabs' birthday present. Like Squidward needs to free that guy. It also makes you wonder like what sets the difference between being like an actual citizen in Bikini Bottom and being a pet. Cause they're all like fish and like sea creatures, right? But anyways, this is getting too deep. That is an interesting topic for like another video though, right? In that same shot, right beside that sea toad's tank is another glass enclosure containing 2 fluttering jellyfish bats. These hybrid creatures appeared in the stop motion special, The Legends of Bikini Bottom, where SpongeBob's Halloween dream featured jellyfish that turned into bat-like creatures. Their cameo here, flapping around together in a pet store tank, is yet another cool Easter egg. Moving upward to the top left of the scene, we can spot the spiky form of the squid urchin. This weird little creature debuted in Gary's Playhouse, an episode where Gary becomes friends with an urchin.
That garbage can looks like Squidward's house.
Here's a side-by-side, and yeah, the one in this tank right here from Happy Krabby Birthday looks nearly identical to the one seen in Gary's Playhouse. But finally, if we head over to the right side, we'll see a large algae-covered monster clam. And this is actually a green variant of the big clam monster from Plankton's Pet. In that episode, Plankton's attempt to find a pet led him to an algae-coated giant clam.
Oh no, Plankton!
You know, I can't say I'm surprised.
This is another interesting one, as if we look at the two side by side, there are some differences, right? For example, the colors are very different, but this is the first time that we've seen this big clam character since Plankton's Pet. So even if it's not the same one, this is clearly a very sneaky reference to that episode. And yeah, that does it for all of the pet references, but just rewinding a little bit, like I mentioned earlier on in this episode, Michelle Bryan was the animation director for this one. And like I referenced earlier, I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of the characters that they clearly created back in Delivery to Monster Island appeared in this episode. So some fun trivia for you right there. I pay attention to everything, all right? Cartoon Corey's got the eyes of a hawk. Moving on though, this episode doesn't just limit itself to like background cameos, it also throws in a few continuity references and character callbacks during the story. For example, after surviving the pet department fiasco, SpongeBob and Squidward do eventually secure a present for Mr. Krabs, leading us to the final scene, where they present the gift to Mr. Krabs at his birthday party. When this happens, Squidward suddenly lunges to take credit for the entire thing.
Me old Krabby cart?
It was all my idea.
I left this cart at Goo Lagoon a long time ago. Because I hated it!
He gives Mr. Krabs a smug grin and tries to imply that he was the one behind the whole thing, which if you've watched the episode isn't very true. More importantly though, this moment is actually a cheeky callback to the episode The Lost Mattress, in which SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward bought Mr. Krabs a new mattress. In that story, Squidward likewise attempted to steal credit for the gift.
We noticed how miserable you were on your lumpy old mattress.
So I suggested we get you a new one.
I thought it was your idea.
So like I said, this is some good continuity, seeing Squidward do pretty much the same thing years later in Happy Krabby Birthday. Dude, my mouth is so dry today that I can't even say it right. Birthday. There we go. I can pronounce words correctly, guys. Only sometimes though, as you guys have seen in the past. But finally, the episode sneaks in a cameo from a character that we haven't seen in a decade. But for this, we have to rewind all the way back to the start of the episode. As Squidward readies himself, his reflection suddenly comes to life as alternate universe Squidward. This alternate version of Squidward originally comes from the episode The Algae's Always Greener from season 3, where Plankton's wishful alternate reality featured a Squidward who worked for Plankton instead of Mr. Krabs. He's also appeared in multiple other episodes, considering the fact that he's like an alternate version. For example, the character also pops up in season 9 Squid Plus 1, but it's heavily implied that all of these different alternate versions of Squidward are the same one. And this is why the character popping up again in Happy Krabby Birthday is actually like kind of interesting. And it's also the character's first appearance in like nearly 12 years. So yeah, welcome back, dude. In the season 16 episode Pigskin Pearl, Pearl Krabs joins her high school football team and unexpectedly becomes their new star player, leading Bikini Bottom High into a championship game. I personally really like episodes like this because they're not as focused on SpongeBob and are giving other characters a chance to shine, like Pearl. This has actually happened a couple of times now. Like we had a whole episode Mall Girl Pearl, which was all about Pearl getting a job at the mall. I think SpongeBob only appears for like a second in that episode, and there's plenty of others, but this episode in particular celebrates Pearl's athletic prowess, while SpongeBob and Patrick enthusiastically cheer her on from the sidelines. As the game unfolds, the animators slip in nods to earlier SpongeBob adventures that eagle-eyed fans will definitely recognize. For instance, when Patrick scrambles up the towering bleachers to reach the announcer's booth, he suddenly dons a familiar getup, a Swiss mountaineer's outfit complete with an alpine hat and gear. Does this look familiar to you guys? Longtime viewers will remember Patrick wearing a nearly identical Swiss mountain climbing outfit back in the season 3 episode New Student Starfish, during this gag right here.
Come in, SpongeBob!
It seems the Pigskin Pearl team gave Patrick's old costume a bit of a redesign here, but the homage is definitely clear. Another fun reference comes via Pearl's fearsome opponents in the episode. I mean, just listen to this clip right here and listen to what they call the rival football team, like the team's name.
The New Kelp City Delinquents. Their entire team has been held back in school for decades.
As you just heard, the rival football team is called the New Kelp City Delinquents, a team name that in itself is an Easter egg. New Kelp City is a location introduced in the special SpongeBob episode, Whatever Happened to SpongeBob, also known as Who Bob What Pants, which is actually a much cooler title. But yeah, this is the first time we heard of New Kelp City.
Citizens of New Kelp, come out of the shadows! Cause Cheese Boy kicked the bubble poppin' gang right out of town!
This is an historic day for New Kelp City. You have rid this city of the bubble poppin' boys.
It's a rare location that is very rarely brought up, and originally was kind of exclusive to Whatever Happened to SpongeBob. The location was made just so that SpongeBob could go missing and end up in New Kelp City. So it's really cool to see it referenced in season 16 so many years later. This is like a deep cut. Also, by naming the rival football team after that city, the episode is like subtly connecting Pearl's high school sports story to SpongeBob's broader universe. And again, I've said this in the past couple of Easter egg videos, this is something Nickelodeon has been doing a ton in season 16. But yeah, let's keep it going. There's some more Easter eggs in this episode. So the climax of Pigskin Pearl delivers perhaps the most heartwarming one though. When Pearl is down and doubting herself, SpongeBob steps in to give her a confidence boost. And if you take a look at this clip, it's somewhat of a reference to an older SpongeBob episode.
You look nervous. I'm gonna share a special cheer with you. My grandma taught it to me. When days are tough and things go bad, grandmas help you not feel sad. Remember to just be you.
As you just seen, SpongeBob performs a sweet cheer that Grandma SquarePants taught him, advising Pearl to just be you when times are tough. Well, this entire scene mirrors an older scene from the episode Rock Bottom. Now, they're not identical, but it's more the fact of SpongeBob quoting something from his grandmother. Take a look at the clip and you'll see what I mean.
I guess Grandpa SquarePants was right. Don't run for a bus. Especially one that's going up at a 90-degree angle.
If you listen closely, SpongeBob does that same high-pitched voice that he did in Pigskin Pearl, showing that these two are a little bit of a reference. Either way, the fact that Grandma SquarePants was brought up in general is somewhat of a cool reference. She isn't in the show very often anymore and had a big appearance back in the episode Grandma's Kisses. She was actually a lot more present if you remember, like back in season 1, 2, and 3, so seeing her being referenced in season 16 is really cool. In the episode Pardon My Wand, another one from season 16 by the way, let me know what you guys think in the comments about season 16. I feel like there's been some really good episodes this season. But yeah, in this episode, SpongeBob comes into possession of a misplaced magician's wand. And of course, as you can imagine, SpongeBob doesn't give it back. He proceeds to cause absolute magical mayhem across Bikini Bottom, just like he does in this clip right here. Roll it.
Gary, did you redecorate the living room while I was out?
This episode is jam-packed with rapid-fire gags, as SpongeBob accidentally transforms and enchants everything in sight. And many of those gags are sly callbacks to SpongeBob's past antics. The first Easter egg appears on stage, including a very large snail with a bushy brown body. Longtime fans may recognize this creature as the elephant snail from the episode Don't Feed the Clowns, a one-off character from that episode. In that episode, the elephant snail was a circus animal that roared like an elephant and balanced on a beach ball. Well, Pardon My Wand brings the elephant snail back for an encore, making for a really cool Easter egg, as this character has not been seen since, and I don't think he's going to be seen again for a while after this. But yeah, as the episode continues, SpongeBob inadvertently casts a hiccup spell on himself, and this is where another Easter egg comes in. The uncontrollable hiccups SpongeBob makes throughout the scene might sound exactly like you've heard them before, and that's because the audio recordings of SpongeBob hiccups are literally reused from the episode Hiccup Plague. In Hiccup Plague from season 12, SpongeBob was afflicted with a citywide contagious hiccup outbreak, and Tom Kenny's ridiculous hiccup sounds in that episode were apparently so perfect that Pardon My Wand lifted them wholesale for this magic mission. Here's the Pardon My Wand version. And here's the Hiccup Plague version. And yeah, as you notice, they're like literally the exact same sound. Again, this might be a reference, but this might also just be the team being lazy. Tom Kenny is very old now, guys. He's aging, and honestly, if you even listen to his voice in the most recent SpongeBob movie, you can hear the age. So I imagine that they save certain sounds that he has to make so he doesn't have to redo them when he comes into the studio. That's just my theory, but who knows? As SpongeBob gleefully skips through town wielding the unruly wand, Pardon My Wand turns into a rapid montage of magical callbacks. For example, SpongeBob accidentally transforms a couple's boatmobile into a gigantic orange sea snake. If it seems familiar, it's because that very same slithery creature appeared in the season 14 episode Squidiot Box, when Squidward's imagination turned against him. If we look at a side-by-side, I'd say that these two are the same snake. They're the same color, and yeah, I think it's the same character. But the surprises continue as SpongeBob prances past familiar locals. For example, he skips by the exact same bench from the episode Something Smells. Here's a side-by-side, and yeah, I think they're the same. I mean, this old bench is drawn and placed exactly as it was in that season 2 episode, making it a little piece of SpongeBob history plunked into the background. Moments later, SpongeBob twirls past the ice cream parlor from the episode Hall Monitor. Here's another side-by-side, and it's definitely the same. And yeah, longtime viewers have seen this ice cream shop multiple times now. It's where SpongeBob caused mayhem as a hall monitor, and where Patrick got severe and comical sunburn back in the episode Sun Bleached. So its presence here further cements the idea that all these episodes share one connected lived-in world, a point that I've been pushing for the past couple of videos. Finally, Pardon My Wand caps off its reference parade with a brilliant deep cut. In the mayhem, SpongeBob accidentally shrinks Squidward, very similarly to the way he did back with Mermaid Man's belt. But yeah, this leaves Squidward tiny in his own garden. As if on cue, the same cockroach from the episode Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 4 appears, towering over mini Squidward and proceeding to rough him up.
Huh? Why is everything all tiny?
This is a direct homage of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 4 from season 3, making for another really cool reference. Okay, so let's talk about the season 16 episode, Pardon My Wand, as this episode has a ton of Easter eggs and they're all really interesting. But first, let me give you guys a little bit of context. That way the Easter eggs actually make sense. But yeah, in this one, SpongeBob gets this magic wand right here. And I mean, just think about it for a second. This is the same dude that when he became hall monitor at school, started walking around thinking he was a cop causing car accidents. SpongeBob and having the ability of magic is kind of a bad mix. It's an entertaining mix, it makes for a really good episode, but you guys know that SpongeBob is about to cause freaking mayhem.
What if we just cure your hiccups instead? I'll get you some water.
Huh? That'll fix it.
Okay, now you guys know the premise of the episode and we can get into the Easter eggs. And this first one is a really good one. You do have to be a SpongeBob nerd to get it. I'm gonna play the clip and let's see if you guys can spot the Easter egg, and then I'll come back in and I'll explain it. Okay, so who remembers the episode Hocus Pocus? This episode is like nearly 20 years old. It came out in 2007 in season 4. And in this episode, we were introduced to this place, the 1942 Wizard Street. And we were also introduced to Mr. Magic.
But what if I told you that you could change all that with the magic of magic?
Yeah, this guy right here. Now, we haven't seen Mr. Magic or that castle I was just talking about since Hocus Pocus, so it's been like nearly 18, 19 years. But randomly, somebody decided to include it in this new SpongeBob episode, Pardon My Wand, right here. But it's a little different now. It seems that it's been redesigned and rebranded as Mr. Magic's Magic Shop. Like, it actually has a name now, and it seems to be a magician's performance venue. Also, we don't see Mr. Magic in the episode, but he cameos on the sign right here. Here's a side-by-side, and yeah, really cool. I'm gonna move on to another one, but I really want to highlight this one's really random. Hocus Pocus isn't some iconic episode. It's a great episode, but it isn't like Eels and Escalators, the board game from Sailor Mouth. It isn't like that appearing in a newer episode. This one means that whoever wrote this episode went back and they did their research. However, this next Easter egg is a reference to like an iconic episode, Tea at the Tree Dome, which was Sandy's first ever appearance back in the day.
So, what's your name?
Sandy. So, what do y'all call yourself? I'm SpongeBob!
Canonically, they've completely changed this now, especially with Camp Coral, as Sandy literally appears in Camp Coral, despite being seen literally meeting SpongeBob for the first time in Tea at the Tree Dome. But anyways, I want you guys to remember this orange bird right here that appears in this bird bath in Tea at the Tree Dome, as it's probably going to help you spot this next Easter egg. Roll the clip.
We gotta handle this enchanted doohickey real delicate like.
Yeah, this cutie reappears in Pardon My Wand for the first time in a long time. But it's really cool to see this character that's really never appeared since Tea at the Tree Dome reappear in this episode. It's very clearly a deliberate reference, and I freaking love these. Superstition. And this is a season 16 episode. In this one, Friday the 13th comes to Bikini Bottom. And as you guys know, Friday the 13th is the day where everybody is supposed to get bad luck. It's a superstition, and Mr. Krabs is terrified of this.
Oh, no, 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 no! An indoor whistle brings luck's dismissal!
Yeah, Mr. Krabs needs to take a chill pill. Like, this guy is just, he's too much sometimes. Like, imagine Mr. Krabs being your boss. Not only do you have to deal with this type of nonsense, but also, this dude barely even pays SpongeBob, and as we've seen in previous episodes, SpongeBob barely gets any time off of work. This episode just came out, so I don't want to spoil it, so let's get right into the Easter egg. I'm gonna play the clip, and let's see if you guys can find it.
Ahoy, Mr. Krabs! Your morning cup of tea coming right up.
I imagine that a lot of you guys missed it, so let me explain, right? You know how it was going on before about Mr. Krabs being a lame boss? Well, if we rewind all the way back to the episode Stuck on the Roof, despite being a terrible boss over the years, we see that Mr. Krabs has this #1 boss mug right here. This thing right here, I'm highlighting it. But yeah, it's been quite some time since we've seen this mug. It only appeared in this episode Stuck on the Roof, which is a season 11 episode, so it's pretty old by now. However, the mug randomly appeared in the form of an Easter egg in this episode we're talking about, Superstition. Here's a side-by-side, and yeah, that's a really cool Easter egg. Also, it kind of shows you how long it's been since season 11. We used to refer to SpongeBob season 11 as modern SpongeBob, but it's 10 years old now. So if you really think about it, these episodes like Stuck on the Roof are starting to become quote-unquote classics, but yeah. The episode Heart of Garbage, another one from season 16, plunges Bikini Bottom into dystopian chaos when Squidward's home becomes ground zero for an ever-growing mountain of trash. Ew. Like, look at this. I can smell it from here. It reminds me of SpongeBob's breath back in the episode Something Smells. It also reminds me of something else, but we'll get to that in a moment. In a storyline that is part parody, part homage, Squidward accidentally angers the garbage men and ends up literally trapped in garbage for 6 months.
The trash goes in the truck, not on my lawn. Just put the garbage where it's supposed to go.
Dude, imagine being trapped in garbage for that long. Oh my God. Just imagine how bad Squidward smells right now. But more importantly, guys, this is actually a reference to something. This riffs on Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness and its famous film adaptation, Apocalypse Now. The entire episode functions as a playful underwater echo of that classic tale. And I mean, just look at the plot. SpongeBob and Patrick must venture through a garbage jungle to find Squidward, much like Marlowe taking a journey up a river to find Kurtz.
You made it this far, but you still must pass the booby traps up ahead.
Please!
This homage is acknowledged right in the title as well. I mean, it's called Heart of Garbage, which is a direct spoof of Heart of Darkness. Also, fun fact, longtime viewers will recall that this isn't the first time that Squidward's house has been overtaken by trash. Back in season 7's Keep Bikini Bottom Beautiful, SpongeBob once helped Squidward avoid littering fines by moving all of his litter to his house, thus turning his house into a house of garbage, complete with trash furniture and a trash bed. I don't think that bed would be very comfy, guys. Like right now, you're probably in bed watching this video. Imagine if you were in that garbage bed, you would not be getting any sleep. But anyways, Heart of Garbage hilariously encapsulates that concept. But instead of a one-off slight gag, the entire interior of Squidward's real house becomes a sprawling garbage labyrinth that SpongeBob and Patrick have to navigate. Okay, so we've covered this episode before, but I found more stuff that I haven't talked about before. So yeah, let's dive back into the episode Karate Pals. The episode kicks off with the Gal Pals hanging out, with them each showing all of their different skills. Sandy shows karate, Pearl shows cheerleading, Karen cooks some holographic meatloaf, as we covered previously when we talked about this episode. And they're all having a good old time. You know, sometimes you just have to get the girlies together, it's just a vibe. But what's also a vibe is the really cool Easter egg at the very start of this episode. This Easter egg happens right as Sandy offers karate, and Karen pretty much rejects it, with her claiming that she's not built for combat.
My servos are not built for combat.
It's very, very easy to miss. And to be honest with you, this isn't the type of thing that you'd catch unless you were actually looking for Easter eggs. But if we look at Karen's screen during this scene, a schematic pops up on it. And if you zoom in, this labels her as Karen 1.0, which is a nerdy little acknowledgement that the show has literally done a next model storyline for Karen before. It's a reference to the episode Karen 2.0, where Plankton swaps the original Karen out for a replacement model. Karen leaves, winds up at the Krusty Krab, and the story eventually forces Plankton to face what he threw away. So yeah, a really cool Easter egg here that acknowledges Karen 2.0. Like, it's acknowledging that there is another version of Karen, and that this one right here, the one that's a part of the Gal Pals and is still cooking holographic meatloaf, this one is the original model. It's not that big of a deal, but it is some cool continuity. Also, you guys have been on my ass about how I pronounce continuity, so let me get it right one sec. So I've been saying continuity, but it's continuity. Continuity, there we go. I'll probably continue to say it wrong sometimes. Maybe I'll get a t-shirt with that on it. Continuity, there we go, now I got it. But yeah, this whole thing with Karen 1.0 referencing Karen 2.0 is some good continuity. Did I get it right, guys? If so, I better get a freaking cookie or a Krabby Patty, bro. I feel like one of those would slap. What would also slap though is another freaking Easter egg, so let's talk about it. The next Easter egg or reference can be found once Sandy convinces everybody to commit to her karate lessons. As once they get into it, Sandy teaches karate wearing the same basic gi design from the episode Single Cell Defense. Back in that episode, Sandy trains Plankton after he gets sick of being stepped on, and during her training with Plankton, she wears a gi with a purple belt.
Your opponent's momentum can be used against them, no matter matter, your size.
Well, years later in Karate Pals, not only does she wear the same outfit, but she's now depicted with a black belt instead. If we do a side-by-side, we can see there's some slight differences, but it's pretty much the same outfit. And yeah, now she's a black belt instead of a purple belt. So this is not only a good Easter egg, but it's also some really cool continuity. Belt systems vary by dojo, but common karate belt progressions usually place purple before black, with a black belt being like one of the top ranks. This is why it's really good continuity, as I guess Sandy has risen through the ranks since single cell defense, going from a purple belt to a black belt. So yeah, don't mess with Sandy, bro, she'll kick your butt. I'm gonna move on to another Easter egg or reference, but I do wonder if this is going to continue. Like in future episodes, if Sandy dresses up in like a gi or a karate uniform, is she gonna have a black belt again? If so, that's really good stuff. I mean, this girl's been practicing karate since like season 1, so she might as well be a black belt by now. Now from here, Sandy's love of karate spreads on to all of the other gal pals, but they take it way too seriously. Karen in particular becomes obsessed with karate after the lesson, which actually helps Plankton at one point in the following scene, as when Karen arrives back home, she walks in on Plankton being chased inside the chum bucket in his lab by this nasty looking chum monster right here. Well, this is actually a reference, as the chum monster chasing Plankton looks like the same one from season 13's Chums. If we rewind back to that episode, we were introduced to the collective hive under Master, shortened to Chum. These monsters are a group of chum who were formed by mixing gas in the sewers. They were accidentally created by Plankton and they look really gross.
Chum mixes with gases in sewer to form wee.
Well, in Karate Pals, I guess Plankton made another one because he's getting chased by it in this scene right here. He even requests Karen to put it back in its cage at one point, so maybe Plankton's been training them, who knows. But if we look at the one in this episode, Karate Pals, and the one from Chums side by side, we can see that it's like the same monster, so really good stuff by the writing team. Some really good continuity. I've got another Easter egg that I want to talk about in a second that's a really good one, but real quick, and don't worry to my regulars, I'm going to shut up fast. If you're new, guys, please subscribe. I'm one of the only non-AI SpongeBob channels on YouTube. Well, one of the only non-AI SpongeBob sleep channels. There's tons of SpongeBob channels that don't use AI on YouTube. But yeah, if you want to support somebody who uses absolutely no AI and puts way too much time into making videos about SpongeBob, please subscribe. But I'm gonna shut up now and let's talk about more Easter eggs. Now, after that quick scene at the chum bucket, the episode jumps to Sandy's tree dome, where Plankton calls requesting for Sandy's help as Karen starts going crazy and just redecorating Plankton's lab by punching and kicking holes throughout the entire place. Now, it's a really quick scene, but when it jumps to Sandy's tree dome and Sandy answers the phone, there's a very easy to miss Easter egg. Just as Sandy answers the phone, we can see a couple of ducks. And these are actually the same exact ones from the episode Salty Sponge. Back in Salty Sponge, there was a quick gag near the ending of the episode where a group of ducks tried to cross the road before they're almost run over by one of the biker fish, who quickly zips past. Well, I guess Sandy saved them, and maybe even adopted them, as the exact same ducks appear in Sandy's tree dome during that scene in Karate Pals. I may be missing some lore detail here. There might have been an episode where Sandy adopts them or something, or maybe there was a scene in Salty Sponge that I missed. But yeah, they're with Sandy now. And also, a nice little touch that I noticed, we can see that when they're trying to cross the road, they're wearing air helmets. I'm zooming in, you can see them right here. But in Karate Pals, because they're inside Sandy's tree dome, they don't need them, so just really cute. Them wearing air helmets isn't an Easter egg, but it's just a really cute touch. From here, Sandy heads over to the chum bucket to see what the heck is going on with Karen, who's doing some remodeling, punching holes throughout the place, as I mentioned. But this makes Sandy realize that maybe it isn't just Karen. Maybe Pearl and Mrs. Puff are also tweaking out as well, so she rushes over to Pearl, who's at one of her cheer meetings. Well, Sandy was right, and Pearl's just been beating the heck out of all of her different classmates and just other people on her cheer team. And in one scene, as Sandy runs towards Pearl, she sees a group of her classmates and members of the band team running away from Pearl. During the shot, a tuba is thrown out of nowhere and eventually hits somebody in the distance, this guy right here. This is a very quick scene, but if we pause just as the tuba is thrown, we can see a very rare character. This guy right here is Coach Cod. And yeah, unfortunately, he gets cooked by the tuba that was just yeeted at him. Dude, it literally causes an explosion, so I hope he's okay. Somebody needs to put Pearl in jail for this. She could have killed that guy. But yeah, this character is a major deep cut. He first appeared in a flashback scene in the episode Sing a Song of Patrick 15 years ago.
Roses are blue, violets are red. I have to go to the bathroom.
How many times I gotta tell you, this is gym class?
But then after that episode, the dude just completely disappeared for 11 straight seasons. But this changed in season 16, when he randomly got like 2 new random appearances. First in the episode Pigskin Pearl, in a quick scene where he talks to Pearl inside of a locker room. And then in this episode, Karate Pals. And here's a fun fact for you guys. It turns out that Karate Pals and Sing a Song of Patrick were both written by Luke Brookshire. So who knows, maybe this character may have been created by Luke himself, which is why the character has only really shown up when Luke is doing the writing. That's just a theory though, I don't know for sure. But nonetheless, it was cool to see the dude back. From here, after Pearl pretty much nearly murdered somebody, Sandy decides that she needs to undo the karate training. So her and SpongeBob try to fix the mess with a reverse karate matrix device, meant to erase the karate obsession. But they mess up and end up spreading the karate obsession across the whole town instead. And this is where we can find another reference. And honestly, this is another one that's very easy to miss unless you're paying attention to like the background, as SpongeBob and Sandy go into town to see if things have worked. And this is where they realize that they messed up, as we can see a variety of different Bikini Bottomites and just background characters doing karate. But if we look on top of this building right here, we can see Incidental 64 and another Incidental having quite the fight. And if we look at Incidental 64, they're wearing dark glasses and a trench coat, and they're dodging punches in slow motion. And I mean, if you were born before the year of like 2005, you already know what this reference is. This is a reference to the iconic film The Matrix. And if you look at Incidental 64, he's even doing like the iconic bullet time like dodge where he leans backwards. I'm showing a side-by-side with The Matrix here as well. And yeah, it's very easy to miss, but it's an awesome reference to a really good movie, just saying. But yeah, this is a very messy situation. We've seen what Pearl was capable of with her obsession of karate, so who knows what all these other Bikini Bottomites are going to do. SpongeBob and Sandy have really messed up, but did they actually though? As Sandy stresses out, SpongeBob points out that while this wasn't the ideal plan, everyone is actually having fun. The episode then cuts to quick jump cuts of different incidentals and background characters practicing karate together and having honestly a great time. Now, during one of these shots, we can spot another rare character. But let me give you some context. If we rewind all the way back to the episode The Chaperone, and that episode, it's prom night. And though Pearl is forced to go to prom with SpongeBob since nobody else asked her, she truly wanted to go with somebody else, if you guys remember.
There's only one fish in the sea as long, tan, and handsome as he is, and that's him!
This introduced us to Octavius Rex, the popular kid at Pearl's school. Pearl mentions Octavius Rex as long, tan, and handsome, and then later he appears at the prom, alone, and eventually asks Pearl to dance, but she realizes he's lame and refuses. Now, Octavius Rex is a very rare character. He's appeared since The Chaperone, but usually with a different color scheme. But what's really cool about this appearance is that he's actually the right color. If we do a side-by-side with him in this episode, Karate Pals, and then his original appearance in The Chaperone, they finally used the correct color. So we can say for sure that this dude right here is Octavius Rex. And it's an awesome reference to one of my favorite episodes. The Chaperone is a really good SpongeBob episode. Also, just saying, let me know in the comments, how do you guys feel about these sections where I talk about rare characters? They're not necessarily Easter eggs, right? But they are still like a cool bit of trivia. So yeah, let me know if you guys actually enjoy these sections. Let me know in the comments. So the episode A Fish Called Sandy from season 15 actually has like almost an entire video's worth of Easter eggs. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this is the most amount of Easter eggs I think I've ever covered in one episode, as this episode A Fish Called Sandy has so many, and there's actually a lot of interesting lore and fun facts about this episode as well. But yeah, the episode opens with a scene that immediately lets us know that this is going to be a nostalgic episode, as it kicks off right off the bat with an Easter egg. We see this orange scallop right here perched up on a wooden stand, just chilling in the morning sun. And if this looks familiar, it's because it's nearly a shot-for-shot recreation of the opening of a season 1 episode. If we go back to Opposite Day, that 1999 episode, we get a very similar scene where a scallop sat outside of Squidward's house, and here in this new episode, it mirrors this scene exactly, even down to the same exact wooden perch. Like if we show them side by side, we can see that it's even the same little wooden platform. And yeah, it's a fitting start for an episode designed as a loving visual tribute to SpongeBob's early years, as you guys will see. I mean, even the title itself, A Fish Called Sandy, is actually a playful reference to the 1988 comedy film A Fish Called Wanda. In fact, the premise of this episode also riffs on the famous short story The Fly and its 1986 film remake about a scientist's experiment gone awry. Here, Sandy Cheeks plays the role of the bold experimenter eager to swap her DNA with a fish, a scenario that promises a lot of comedy and, as you'll see, is jam-packed with so many Easter eggs, guys, like holy cow. Also, just saying, guys, I am a little sick. I just played another concert with my band. Here are some photos from the concert. And I was singing a lot. I sang like 30 songs, so if my voice is a little bit shaky, that's why. But also, you guys get to see these photos, and it's just another reminder that I am not AI and I'm a real boy. But let's keep it going. At the very start of this episode, after the scene with that scallop, Sandy and SpongeBob meet up, and when we first see SpongeBob, he's found goofing around with a crumbled gum wrapper, making it flutter and fold for his own amusement. SpongeBob is a very simple boy. Well, longtime viewers might recognize this as a subtle nod to the season 1 episode, The Paper. You know, the episode where SpongeBob famously entertained himself with like a scrap piece of paper, which caused Squidward to literally go crazy. I'm pretty sure he even gives SpongeBob like the deed to his house to get the paper back. But yeah, this seems to be somewhat of a callback to that, but it also might be a coincidence. Nonetheless, this small detail immediately sets the tone. Nick Jennings, the show's original art director from seasons 1 to 3, makes his return after over 20 years. He was missing for a while, and this dude jam-packed this episode with subtle touches to the show's early days. Even the title card art uses the same background style and hand-drawn lettering from the first season. For example, here's a side-by-side. And there's a ton of other things that make it clear that A Fish Called Sandy is deliberately steeped in nostalgia. But back to the plot. Sandy invites SpongeBob into her tree dome, eager to show off her latest invention. As they enter, observant fans are greeted by an old friend, a very nostalgic Easter egg right here. As if we zoom in over here, we can see Birdie, the same orange bird from Sandy's debut episode, Tea at the Tree Dome. And if we rewind in Sandy's first episode, this little bird was happily seen splashing in the bird bath in that episode as well, only to be rudely interrupted when a desperate SpongeBob dove in to soak up water. Here, over 2 decades later, we see Birdie again, making for a really cool callback. Inside the dome, Sandy unveils her new invention, the Fish You Up machine, a contraption designed to swap genetic traits between animals. It's actually really cool, and as she explains its function, she affectionately calls SpongeBob Square Dude.
Boop that button, Square Dude!
This nickname is actually a reference to Tea at the Tree Dome as well. As in SpongeBob and Sandy's very first meeting back in that episode, Sandy says the following line.
Hold on there, little square dude!
Back in that season 1 episode, it was the first time Sandy ever used that moniker, and it was pretty much the last until this episode. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, guys. There are so many more Easter eggs in this episode. So let's keep it going. As the machine zaps Sandy and Fred, poor Fred, by the way, he was just like signed up against his own will for this experiment, clearly. But as the transformation happens, Sandy undergoes a cartoonishly detailed transformation. We see her grow gills on her neck while her lungs shrivel up, which is animated in almost the exact same way as a scene from the season 2 episode Pressure. If we go back to that episode, Sandy challenged the others to see who could last longer without their usual habitat. And when she removed her helmet underwater, her lungs visibly shrank and dried out as she struggled to hold her breath. Well, a fish called Sandy replicates that visual gag lovingly, with her pink lugs deflating just like balloons, just like SpongeBob fans saw back in 2001. Here's a side-by-side, and as you can see, it's very, very similar. Also, to cap it off, the sound effect used when Sandy's lungs are shrinking is actually the very same sound effect that we heard when SpongeBob himself shrank down to a withered sponge on the grill back in Nature Pan. Here's the sound effect from A Fish Called Sandy. And now here's the sound effect from Nature Pants. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm saying here, but they're pretty much the same sound effect. Moving on though, when the smoke clears, Sandy's experiment appears to be a success, at least initially. She now has gills like a fish, meaning she can breathe underwater without her air helmet. But this whole mad science setup is actually more than just a plot device. It's the show's playful take on The Fly, which we mentioned earlier, with Sandy effectively turning into the fish in this scenario. The episode embraces the classic science fiction vibe while filtering it through SpongeBob's quirky lens, giving it that Nickelodeon spin. It's really cool. It's kind of interesting how like the SpongeBob team does this. It's actually a very common thing where there'll be references to very obscure media. The Fly isn't necessarily obscure, but if you're like under the age of like 30, you're not really gonna get the reference, which is why I'm here. With Sandy now able to live like a fish, she and SpongeBob embark on a day of fun. And this kicks off an extended montage that dude has so many Easter eggs in it, and there's a reason for it. As I mentioned before, this episode served as a one-time return for Nick Jennings, the original art director for the show back in the first 3 seasons, which for those of you who don't really understand this role, I'm not gonna go into like depth about it, but pretty much Nick would handle all art. He was in charge of all the art. He'd work with all of the different artists, the storyboard artists, and was a big part of the art style and all of the art tropes from the show's original first few seasons. He was a big deal and really shaped a lot of our childhoods if you're someone like me. So this dude made sure that nearly every shot in this sequence contains a familiar background, character, or gag. For example, the first stop is this meadow where Sandy and SpongeBob frolic and sniff flowers together. Looks like a good time. Well, you may recognize that this backdrop or background right here is actually from the episode Fun, more specifically from SpongeBob's famous Fun song, where we see SpongeBob dance through a meadow of flowers while teaching Plankton about friendship. If we do a side-by-side, we'll see that here, the exact same flower-dotted landscape is lovingly recreated, as SpongeBob and Sandy take a moment to appreciate the bloom. And you've probably noticed now at the side-by-side, this is more than a pretty background. It's a direct callback to a fan-favorite musical moment from like 1999, and it's made even more special because Nick Jennings, if we go and look at the credits of the episode Fun, was actually the art director who contributed to this original meadow. And this is going to be a running theme throughout this entire video. So let's continue. After the Fun reference, the montage then kicks into a lively pace. SpongeBob and Sandy don their karate gear, with SpongeBob in red gloves and Sandy in her green, just like the outfits they wore back in Karate Choppers. Another reference. Also, for a brief scene, the pair engage in some friendly karate sparring, which also seems to reference that season 1 episode where their karate obsession first got out of hand back in Karate Chopper. And there's more going on here. Seashell Park, where Sandy and SpongeBob practice karate back in the same episode, Karate Choppers. This might not seem like actually a big deal, but Seashell Park is a location that hasn't been seen often since its original appearance, making its reappearance here a treat for hardcore fans. The animators even restructured a tiny background detail from the earlier seasons. For example, we can see a Porto Head portable toilet in the park right here. And again, this might not seem like it's a big deal. It might just seem like a random porta potty, right? But this specific outhouse was a common art trope back in the show's first 3 seasons. For example, it was a prop in episodes like Bubble Buddy from season 2 and SpongeGuard on Duty from season 3. But once Nick Jennings left the show after season 4, it visually disappeared from the show entirely. Like, that's a fact. If we look at any episodes after season 4, none of them have this prop, the Porto Head portable toilet. Well, it reappears here in A Fish Called Sandy, and I don't think it's a coincidence that this is the episode where Nick Jennings returned. So a really cool Easter egg that's kind of like a deep cut. It's seemingly kind of mundane, right? Like I'm sitting here over explaining a porta potty, but when you understand the lore and history, this is really cool. It is a reference to the show's earlier seasons. And we're not done yet. The montage's rapid fire tributes continue as SpongeBob and Sandy have a laugh in downtown Bikini Bottom. They're shown standing in the city making disgusting armpit farts, which, just saying, back when I was a kid, armpit farts would like really gross me out for some reason. I don't know why. Anything fart related as a kid would make me like so uncomfortable, which is kind of weird, right? I don't know why. I don't even know why I'm telling you this, but this is just the relationship we have, all right? Cartoon Corey and, you know, his subscribers, we have an open relationship. But yeah, they're doing armpit farts right here. And even this shot has a bunch of references. For one, a very specific anchovy incidental character walks past them. A lot of you probably aren't catching this, but this fish is familiar. In fact, he's one of the incidental crowd characters first seen way back in the episode Fun. Specifically from when SpongeBob was searching for plankton, this anchovy, sometimes dubbed as Incidental CM2, hasn't appeared in like decades. He was essentially a one-off, one-time background character from 1999, most likely created by Nick Jennings. Well, Nick Jennings brought him back, giving us another deep-cut detail only nerds like me would ever notice. And the SpongeBob fandom wiki. I'm gonna give them credit for this one. As if that weren't enough, the background of this street scene features the return of this giant red flower arch that eagle-eyed fans might recall from early episodes like Pizza Delivery, Suds, and Nature Pants. This large flower-shaped archway was another signature background element in the first 3 seasons, often visible in wide shots of Bikini Bottom that vanished after Jennings left the show. Again, this is another one that might seem very random, but the lore and history that I'm explaining here is what makes it cool. SpongeBob and the gang never actually visit this thing back in season 1, 2, or 3, and honestly, it's actually a pretty random background detail, but as I mentioned, after season 3, it disappeared. 10-year-old me, like 10-year-old little Corey, certainly did not notice, and I doubt that any of you watching did either, but we now know the answer as to why, and that's that Nick Jennings left the show. So see, some of these things I'm talking about, they're like random and they seem kind of like mundane, but hopefully you guys are getting the picture here. With the lore, it's actually very interesting stuff. And I mean, I don't mean to brag, as I always say, this is what all content creators should be doing. Like if you want to make content on YouTube, you should be going the extra mile, but this just shows how hard I go, because if you were to go and look at the Wikipedia page for this episode, all right, the SpongeBobpedia page, there's lots of the stuff I'm talking about, but I've added so much additional lore and history here, and it's because I love this stuff. It's just so interesting to me. I need to touch grass, but let's keep it going. Another quick segment during that same montage shows SpongeBob and Sandy romping across a field of like hydrothermal vents, these things right here, and as they hop from vent to vent, a blast of hot water from one vent blows SpongeBob straight upward, separating his body from his pants for a split second. Well, this visual gag is a clever reference to the funhouse scene all the way back in Valentine's Day from season 1. In that episode's carnival montage, SpongeBob and Patrick walk through a funhouse, where a gust of air blows SpongeBob up, briefly stretching him apart in a very similar cartoonish fashion. I like these ones, honestly, like these kinds of homages where they take a classic gag and reimagine it in a new context show that some of the production team is familiar with the show's history, which is important, right? Like that's the issue with some of modern SpongeBob, is you can tell that the team making modern SpongeBob isn't always super knowledgeable about the show's lore and history. But anyways, I'm rambling, and we're still not done yet, as even SpongeBob's signature pastime, bubble blowing, gets a nod. In one scene, Sandy struggles to blow a bubble, until SpongeBob steps in to demonstrate the technique, just as he famously taught Patrick back in the episode Bubble Stand, another season 1 episode. Now, after a whirlwind day of fun, like Sandy and SpongeBob did a lot of stuff in this episode, especially in that montage, but as it winds down, SpongeBob and Sandy find themselves atop a hill overlooking jellyfish fields. They got a really nice view, just saying, look at how pretty this looks. If we look closely though, this very beautiful moment hides yet another Easter egg in plain sight. If we zoom in right here, we can see a rock-shaped snail, and this is another reference, as if we go back to the episode Nature Pants, this season 1 episode has a moment where SpongeBob tries to live among the jellyfish, and in one scene, to escape a furious Patrick who's trying to get him to come back to society and be a normal person, SpongeBob camouflaged himself by hiding behind a certain something. Now, if we look at these side by side, we can see that very same snail design, a stony shell with a snail's eyes peeking out, is present here, giving us another really cool Easter egg and reference to another classic episode. This is like a 26-year-old reference right here, pretty cool. Back to the plot though, as this moment at Jellyfish Field leads to this episode's turning point, where Sandy starts to shed her fur since she's transformed into a fish now. And when the molting finally stops, we get a close-up of Sandy's new fishy appearance, and she strikes a pose that I kind of found familiar. If we head back to the episode Tea at the Tree Dome, once again, this pose in A Fish Called Sandy is nearly identical to a pose Sandy held, specifically when she first introduced herself to SpongeBob. If we look at them side by side, it isn't like exact, but I mean it's pretty darn close, right? Like let me know in the comments what you think. I think that this was a direct reference. But of course, SpongeBob is astonished and a little concerned by Sandy's fully fishy transformation. Like imagine your friend just transforming into a different creature, but Sandy herself is like stoked about this. And this leads us to Goo Lagoon, where Sandy wants to see if she can actually swim now that she's all fishy. And this location gives us even more Easter egg. And if we look closely, working the counter is none other than the same chef, this guy right here, from all the way back in the episode Ripped Pants. If you don't recognize him, let me explain. This burly purple fish wearing a white t-shirt and a cool chef's hat ran the Goo Lagoon snack bar back in Ripped Pants.
Delivery! Did you order 20 cases of Ripped Pants?
He's only appeared like a few times since. Like for example, he made like a quick cameo in the episode Abandoned Twits, but this episode marks his true return to the series. And there's more going on here, as when SpongeBob leans casually against the McFlaky stand, the background music playing is very familiar. It's a track called You're Nice, and it's actually the very same tune used as the title card music for Ripped Pants. SpongeBob's pose itself here is also a direct reference. He props an arm onto the counter and kicks one foot up behind him, which is almost exactly how he leaned on the ice cream stand back in Ripped Pants just before delivering his lame joke. Seeing SpongeBob strike this same stance here with Sandy by his side chuckling is another really cool reference. But this is where things get really interesting. After grabbing some snacks, SpongeBob and Sandy depart Goo Lagoon and head home. And as they walk along the roadside, viewers are treated to one of the most unexpected location reveals in SpongeBob history. Fish Hooks Park reappears right here. This very rare area, an open field just with a ton of dangling fish hooks everywhere, was of course the central setting of the iconic season 1 episode Hooky. And I mean, it pretty much hasn't been seen since. It's a very rare location, so seeing it here is kind of a big deal. Like if we go back to Hooky, SpongeBob and Patrick infamously played on these fishing hooks like carnival rides, despite Mr. Krabs' warning that they'll end up dead in the gift shop, if you guys remember. It's a classic episode, and to see the same park drawn again here is a deep cut for fans. There's also another musical reference here, as fittingly, the musical score that plays as they approach this location is The Great White, the same dramatic tune that debuted in the original Hooky episode. So not only is there like a physical Easter egg here, but there's also like an audio Easter egg. How cool is that? I would play them, but I'm not trying to get like spirit bombed by Nickelodeon copyright, so let's not risk it. As you can imagine though, Sandy, now fully transformed into like a fishy sea creature, cannot resist the shiny hooks, just like Patrick couldn't all those years ago. So she peers up at a particularly enticing baited hook. Well, there's another Easter egg here, as one of the very worms from all the way back in Rockabye Bavalve is shown curled around the hook Sandy has her eyes on. If you guys need a refresher, it's this worm from Rockabye Bavalve. I'm gonna play the clip, take a look.
Hello, sea creatures! I bring you greetings from Apple World! Wait! We will bury you!
This little purple worm was last seen being plucked from his apple home in that clip I just played you. Somehow I guess he like survived, I don't know how, because here he is again, about to be eaten by Sandy. If we do a side by side, we'll see that his design with the same cute face and purple body is duplicated exactly. It's like a perfect match. Anyways though, inevitably Sandy takes the bait, literally. Unable to fight her fishy instincts, she bites the hook, and in an instant, she's yanked upward. This whole sequence lovingly parodies the climax of Hooky, but with the roles reversed. In Hooky, SpongeBob himself got snagged on a hook and was nearly reeled to the surface before jumping off at the last second. In fact, SpongeBob's facial expression of shock as Sandy is pulled upward is drawn exactly like a reaction shot from Karate Choppers, of all places. Specifically, the face he made when Mr. Krabs fired him for doing karate at work. It's a very odd reference, but side by side you can see the similarities. It isn't identical, but it is close. Above the ocean, we see live action footage of fishermen on a boat. Another callback to Hooky, which also cut to real fishermen whenever a character was pulled from the water. The fishermen in this episode, however, get a surprise. Instead of a tasty fish, they've reeled in a confused sea squirrel hybrid. In a comedic twist on catch and release, the anglers take one look at Sandy and decide she's not worth, can't really blame them. So they toss her back into the ocean. By now, Sandy is fully embraced behaving like a fish, which leads to one final crazy chase scene. Back in the water, transformed and running on instinct, Sandy starts running through Bikini Bottom. And as SpongeBob pursues her, we get another cool Easter egg, a deep cut. As we can see, SpongeBob passes by a wooden fence where we see Gary the snail perched on top, singing a sea shanty tune that we've heard before, as this is actually a recreation of the ending scene from I Was a Teenage Gary. Back in that season 1 episode, a snailified SpongeBob and Squidward joined Gary on a fence to sing a meowing version of Blow the Man Down as the show ended.
Meow, 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 meow.
Meow, 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 meow.
Here in A Fish Called Sandy, only Gary is present on the fence, but he's singing the exact same song. Dude, what a cool reference. This is a very easy one to miss, but a really cool reference nonetheless. And guys, that actually does it for this episode. Can you believe there was that many Easter eggs in this one freaking episode? Holy cow. I hope you guys enjoyed all the Easter eggs I found, and let's talk about more in another episode.